Welcome down to the Matt Cave, and in this episode of Way Back Wednesday, we're diving into Jurassic Park for the SEGA Genesis. Based on the popular blockbuster hit released in 1993 and directed by Steven Spielberg, Jurassic Park on the SEGA Genesis was an equally popular release in 1993. Throughout the 90s, movie tie-in video games were huge releases every year, and when a big blockbuster film like Jurassic Park comes out, you know there's going to be a video game. Based off of the incredible novel written by Michael Crichton, Jurassic Park captured audiences around the world with their stunning special effects and the incredible story. Multiple video games would be released based off of the first film. The Sega CD had a point-and-click adventure, but today we're going to focus primarily on the Sega Genesis release. Growing up, Jurassic Park on the Sega Genesis was both one of my favorite video games of all time and also one of the most frustrating games I ever played. Like most movie tie-in video games, there are noticeable differences from what we get in the game versus what we get in the film itself. In the case of Jurassic Park, the video game developers had the novel by Michael Crichton to work from, and also potentially an early screenplay from the film itself. So in the game, several of the levels and some of the elements of the story don't match the film, but they do match the novel. So let's dive into my favorite Jurassic Park video game release based on the first Jurassic Park. Alright, and as usual, I used my Hyperkin Retron 5 to play the cartridge using the Genesis cartridge and the actual Sega Genesis controller, which is awesome. The Hyperkin Retron 5, I can't talk about it enough. It breathes new life into your retro collection. Now, replaying this game in its entirety through the Alan Grant storyline, because you get to choose playing as either Alan Grant or the Raptor, which is pretty cool. They got really cool character models. I chose to play through as Alan Grant to give you the storyline. Now, the full playthrough that I did took almost 2 hours to complete because there is so much trial and error in this game, and I kept some of it in the edit here to show you some of what I went through capturing this game being out of practice. I love the cutscene here. It's so cool. Alright, so we get to level 1 after the T-Rex attack. The Rex has demolished your car. The electric fences are down and all the dinosaurs are loose on the island. Make your way through the jungle to the power station. So, here we go. We got the wrecked Jeep, and we're playing as Alan Grant, and we're in the jungle. Now, the cool thing about this level was that it was meant to mimic the part of the film where Alan is in the jungle with the two kids, with Lex and Tim. But this game was designed to play just as Alan Grant, so it has to accommodate for that. So it removes the kids out of the equation. We're not falling down the tree, really, but we're in this crazy platforming jungle where we have to get Alan Grant through. And as I mentioned earlier, this game was being developed before the film came out. So the developers had to take a lot of liberties with it, and they're using information from Michael Crichton's novel, and they're probably going by an early screenplay of the film. That happens in a lot of cases with movie tie-in games. Star Wars Revenge of the Sith is a great example. That game on the Xbox and the PS2 went by the original screenplay, which is why there are moments in that game that are not in the film. I love the graphic style of this game also. I think the animation is really cool. The frustrating part of this game is the controls itself. And it's so hard to explain what it is about these controls without feeling and experiencing it for yourself. I wouldn't say that the controls are slippery or anything like that. It's like there's almost a built-in animation delay with every movement trigger that you do with the character, even with stuff like that where, because Alan's moving a lot and bending his knees, and there's a lot more movement to this character in a 16-bit game than you usually see. So to accommodate for that, it's almost like there's a built-in delay with the controls, so it gets a little awkward at times. Now this first level, I've been through so many times, so I didn't really have too much trouble with it, but because I was using the Hyperkin Retron 5, it has the ability to do save states, and man, what a game changer that is with these old school games. So thanks to the ability to use save states and the built-in password system that's in the game already, I was able to work my way through all 7 levels that are in this, and I'm going to take you through all 7 of them. But you're going to notice some cuts. Anytime you see a clock wipe, it means I cut out a whole lot of time that it took me to get to that next section. Alright, so that's level 1. The jungle is done. Dr. Grant, the island's main power is offline and velociraptors have taken over the power station. Be careful. Now this is an interesting level, being that it is Alan Grant. This level is meant to represent the power station that we do see in the film where Ellie Sattler goes to turn the power back on. But she's not in the game. So we get more of Alan Grant taking on things that didn't happen in the film. But we still get the raptor attacks like Ellie had to deal with in the movie. Now this level, very different from the jungle. Obviously a very different look, a very different color tone to it. And the platforming is a little different. There's items to move around, like boxes and crates. There's climbing ropes. There's going across wires. But the biggest thing is the electricity, and you have to avoid it. Now, right here, I kept this in this edit here to show you what I went through. If you get hit there, you get stuck. Now, right now, my camera is covering my life meter, but it's slowly draining. And it's going to keep draining until I die and lose a life. This area is so frustrating. If you miss this jump and get caught in this, you could be stuck here for way too long. I was in this for maybe 15 to 20 minutes trying to get past this point. I finally got lucky and just managed to slip out of it just ever so slightly with like half a jump. But I only had like a smidgen of life left. So that was tough to get through right there. Like really, really tough. Alright, now, this game is also about timing. Along with the platform, there's timing. And when you climb these fences made of all these wires, it's really timing out the electricity to get past it. If you know the pattern, you really have no problem with it. At the start of the climb, I forgot the pattern, but I quickly remembered and got through. Now, collecting the different weapons, like those darts with the red and blue, those are stronger than the blue and white ones. You want to use the stronger ones against bigger dinosaurs like raptors. The little compies, you can take them out with the small darts. Even the Dilophosaurus will only take a couple of shots with the small one. But the larger dart goes a long way because you can take out a Dilophosaurus in one shot. The raptors still take at least 2. Actually, no, I'm sorry, they take one hit, but if you miss, like hitting like the tail or the legs, I think they need a second shot. And here's another example of timing out the electricity so that you can get past. Now, as you move through the power plant, you get into these sections where in your tight corridors and you're crawling. This is where enemies like the compies can actually get you, but if you time it out and pace it the right way, you can get past without getting attacked. And for the most part, I did alright against the compies overall, trying to keep them away from me because they'll jump on you and keep your character stuck in place. And when that happens, if another dinosaur is in the area, like a raptor or a Dilophosaurus, they can take you out pretty quick. The raptors are fast too, so you want to try to get them while they're off screen if you can, just like that. Now, all these levels, they're not all that long. It's really about getting past the traps and all of the trial and error. But if you notice, you can move the camera down if you duck, so you kind of get a little bit of sight of what you're going to be dealing with. I highly recommend utilizing that whenever you can. Just kind of scan the screen and see what you're going to be dealing with. Collecting some flash grenades there. Those come in handy, and we're going to be using them shortly. But the sound effects of all the dinosaurs are great. I remember playing this game for the first time and hearing all of those sound effects, and it just felt like I was hearing it right from the movie. The other cool thing that I had back in the day, when I got this game, I think I might have got these two things at the same time. I don't remember what the device was called, but basically it was like a rumble pack that you wore for the SEGA Genesis. You put it on like a backpack, but it was like a subwoofer and a rumble, and it would add a bass line to these games, and like things with the raptors dropping in. Oh man, it was crazy. I had that thing for a little while. I don't remember what I did with it. I don't have it any longer, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was called. There were so many gimmick devices back then for all these retro systems in the 8-bit and 16-bit era. So many accessories. Now we hear some banging on the wall there. And we're going to get an appearance by probably the most popular dinosaur in Jurassic Park. Now the trick to the T-Rex, staying out of his way because he will eat you whole, those flash grenades work great. At least 2 of them to blind him for a moment, and you can get past him. Now in areas like this, sometimes there are switches that you need to flip to open up doorways. Down here, there is a panel here. What I've always found is that you have to hit this panel a couple of times. I don't know for sure how many. I always hit it at least 3 or 4 times just to be sure, so I have to run past the T-Rex again, and hopefully the door is open, which in this case it was. But to this day, I don't know the exact amount that I have to hit that panel to make sure the door is open. But so many times I've hit that panel once and run over, door's locked. Alright, level 2 is done. We are moving on to the river. You will find a rubber raft outside by the river. It is low on fuel and all the fuel cans are scattered downstream. This level is very interesting. We never saw an area like this in the first Jurassic Park, but there is a scene within the novel, and I believe this might have been in one of the early screenplays as well, but was scrapped. And there is a scene where they go downriver in a raft. So that's what this level is based off of, right from the novel. And that's where the game is going to differ dramatically from the movie, because we're in an area that just is completely not in the film at all. And there are a few levels in this that are very similar to that. Now, the river level. Death number 1. There are so many deaths in this, and I cut out so many of them. This entire level is 100% trial and error every step of the way. Every single one of these waterfalls is a pathway, and you have to figure out which is going to be the right way. Meanwhile, the current of the river wants to take you in different directions, and you're also trying to maintain fuel and get fuel to keep the boat going, so it'll stutter here and there when it gets low, so you have to keep getting the gas cans. But you can take wrong paths and end up just dying. Every single path in this level is trial and error. Every path you choose is most likely going to lead to a death until you find an alternate path. This level alone on my replay, I cut almost an hour of footage out of this. This level... Hey, we got eaten. I forgot that I got eaten by him there. I love that his hat floats down. Again, trial and error. You find out where you're going to die. The next time you hit that point, you're ready for what's coming your way. And many games have levels like that where it is truly trial and error. But there are some games that get so frustrating because it's a level like this, where literally every step of the way, you're most likely going to die until you memorize the path, the entire path. So it can get very frustrating, and there are many people who dislike this game, very much so, and I don't blame them at all. I mentioned earlier that this game is both one of my favorite Sega games of all time and also one of the most frustrating games I've ever played. The reason being is this level, the third level of the game. And quite honestly, it only gets easier after this level. There are still plenty of frustrating moments, but there are a lot of people who never made it past this section. Now, if you notice, when you get to the waterfalls, you want to try to take your time a little bit because the current is really trying to push you. And if you go over the waterfall too fast, you're going to fly off of it. And if you hit the land, you crash and you die. You lose a life. You get 3 lives altogether, 3 life meters, 1 representing each life. And figuring out which direction to go is the key. Now, thanks to using save states and the password system built into the game, I was able to get through this level without having to completely start over the game several times. If I did not have those save states for this playthrough, I would have had to start from the beginning of the game. I don't even know how many times. Way too many times. And it's actually one of the reasons why I chose to make this episode of Way Back Wednesday pre-recorded and not do this live. Oh, there's another big crash right there. But you eventually can find your way. It's really just try it out, see which path is going to work. The enemies remain the same throughout, so it does become predictable. So you can work your way through and get better and better at each one of these moments. Along the way, you get points where there's another raft. So maybe you missed some gas cans along the way, but there'll be a full raft somewhere in the path. Those are nice to take on if you miss the gas cans. Other than the frustration of this level, though, it is a really good-looking level. I think overall, the art design of this game was really well done. It was one of those things, it definitely has a SEGA Genesis look to it. And you can tell in a lot of cases, if you look at a Super Nintendo game versus a SEGA Genesis game, a lot of us that grew up with it, you can figure out, you can point to which one is which. There's a different look, a different design to it. And the sound as well, with the Sega having that sound blaster that was in it. A very different soundtrack type and sound effects versus the Super Nintendo. I don't recall if this exact version ever made it to the Super Nintendo. I know there is a Jurassic Park game on there, but it's very different from this. Now, if you notice, there was a little bit of a wipe there. What looks like a very easy moment, I found a way to die there a couple of times. So I cut it out there. Yeah, always want to keep those gas bombs for the Triceratops. The Triceratops, if you bother them, will ram you. Alright, the pump station has been overrun by dinosaurs. Shut off all the valves to make it through. Alright, we're going into the 4th level, down in the sewers. This level is multi-tiered and comes with a lot of moments where you could call them cheap deaths, because you have to make a lot of calculated jumps in this level. The other thing that becomes frustrating in a level like this, with controls that are a little funky, is you'll go to do something like as simple as climb a ladder, and you can find yourself missing, or pressing a button and you keep missing. It's because the way the character moves, they don't always stop fully when you would expect him to stop. When you let go of the D-pad, he's still going slightly. Or maybe, even in some cases, when you need him to go just a little bit further, he'll suddenly come to a complete stop. And it can really throw you off. It's one of those games that it's so hard to describe the controls. You just have to experience for yourself. And again, it's one of those portions of the game that made it so that this game is not well liked among a lot of people. Still one of my favorites too. I always eventually come back to it. Now we just picked up a new item, some rockets. Those come in handy later, but to be honest, knowing how to get through this game already, especially in the last level, I don't really use the rockets much. Now this section I did cut out a lot of it. I missed this jump so many times. There's one of the misses. I sat here for quite a while, just trying to make that jump right there. Now this section here, where you have this wheel rolling around, that thing will run you over, so you don't want to go anywhere near it. It has to stop. Here's the problem. You have to get on top of it to then get on that ledge where you need to go. Problem is, once you're on top of this wheel, you start uncontrollably bouncing. It makes it very difficult to move your character in any direction. It doesn't allow you to jump because you're already technically jumping over and over and over. Sometimes you can duck. This literally takes as long as it's just going to take. You have to get lucky for Alan to actually grab the ledge and get on there. I sat there for way too long, and to be honest, I was getting pretty frustrated. But if there is a better way to get through that, I don't know it. And that's how I've gotten through that area since I was a kid. So it literally is just, it's luck. You just have to wait for the moment where Alan Grant grabs the ledge and you can move forward. And there are moments like that where the character animation slows down dramatically. It almost feels like, have you ever played a game where the animation and everything is slowing down and you almost find yourself like pressing the button harder as if that's gonna make it go faster? That's what happens right there in that moment. Again, another area that is not in the films. The closest we see to this is Lex hiding in the entranceway to one of these sewers, and that's about it. But we don't have a moment in the film where Alan Grant's going through the sewer system. I also don't recall if this is in the novel. It might be. I haven't read that in many, many years. The last time I read it was probably in the 90s. But something I think will probably be worth rereading, because Jurassic Park, the novel by Michael Crichton, is fantastic, and I can't recommend it enough. There we go with those flash grenades. That's key to getting past the T-Rex. Otherwise, he will swallow you whole. And you want to reapply if you have to go past or if you're too close to him, because the effect will wear off, and it happens all out of nowhere, so he'll just get you. All right, now up here we have explosive grenades. Those are key. Those are what we're going to need for the very end of the game. You would think it would be the rockets, but it's actually those, and when we get there you'll see why. So you want to make sure you have a decent amount of those. Now, as you can see, I got a lot of ammo at this point. I tried to collect as many things as I see so that I'm all right for the end of the game. With that, I have 83 shots at that moment with the larger darts, which is great. It means I don't really have to switch back to the lighter ones, because I have plenty of ammo at this point. Now here's part of the puzzle aspect of the game where you're turning off the valves and you want to make the pathways to go. And this is, again, more trial and error to figure out which way you're going to go. I spent a lot of time actually going down, wasting a lot of time down there, until I eventually realized I have to work my way through these mist areas. And even this is frustrating to get through because the timing is very tricky. And you also have these ledges so close to each other that when you try to just go in between, you end up grabbing the ledge and climbing back up. Again, another aspect of the game where the controls become very frustrating. And we got a sleeping raptor. There we go. Hit him with the darts, take him out. He will wake up eventually. You see his leg kicking. But you want to try to get through the area before he wakes up so that you can actually keep pushing forward. And we got another raptor right down there. Anything explosive will keep an enemy down longer than just the normal stun or the gas, which helps a lot if you're trying to figure out which way to go still. And being that I was out of practice with this game, there was a lot of mess-ups here, so... Now I got to cut here because I didn't know I forgot that I had to go up this, so I spent a lot of time backtracking all the way through that area. So again, a lot of time that I cut out from this playthrough. Again, it took almost 2 hours to get through this whole game, the 7 levels, which these levels really are not all that long. You just gotta persevere and keep focused and work your way through. Now we're almost through the sewer level, and we're gonna get into some more zones that were not in the film. I ended up dying here, so I make a cut here to just get us through the end of it. And this ended up being almost a loop, and it was just stuck and had no choice but to die. Alright, from here, you will have to travel over land through the canyon. So we're heading into a canyon level that, again, is not in the film. But the nice thing about this game is that each level has its own distinct look to it, which is nice. It helps a game like this, it helps prevent it from getting boring. You know, we're looking at completely different backdrops, different areas to explore and really just kind of appreciate the artwork in it. You know, it can get pretty boring in some of these older games where the levels just all look practically identical. But they did a really nice job with these levels, all of the level design. There's a Dilophosaurus there that takes me out. I always try to take care of the dinosaurs if they're still just off screen if I can, to then make the jumps, because there are moments where if they do hit you, you'll actually push back slightly. Not as extreme as in games like Castlevania, but just enough where it could push you off the ledge and potentially into a hazard that will kill you right away. It would have been cool to see this in the film, though, this area with that volcano in the background. There we go, utilizing the camera to look down and see what's ahead of us, because there are some tricky jumps here. You see how many shots with the light dart it took to take down that raptor? That's why you want to stick with the bigger ones as much as you can. And we're coming up towards the end of this level here. When you get the thin floors like this, whenever I see that in old games, I'm like, okay, that's going to break through. I couldn't quite remember how to break it. I was thinking maybe I need to bomb it or something like that. Turned out it's just, you just need to kind of fall through it. Alright, an active volcano blocks your path to the safety in the visitor center. So we're getting close. We are on the second to last level here. And we're going through an active volcano. Now this level, I always enjoyed this one because it reminded me of a level from Earthworm Jim, another one of my favorite SEGA Genesis games. Again, also a very frustrating game to play through due to controls and some pretty crazy platforming. But I love this design with the smoke rising in the background. You can see like the ambers, it's still burning as it goes up through the smoke. Really cool design to this level, but lots of obstacles and lots of pitfalls. So again, more and more trial and error as you work your way through. And getting little platforms like this are always so frustrating as well because the jumping, it's so inaccurate. Landing some of these can take a lot of practice. Now, I've played this game so many times over the years. I hadn't played in the longest time until I replayed it for this. But, so when you're out of practice with something like this, it can take some time to get that feel back. But these little jumps, especially when areas make you slide, which actually does hurt you, by the way. Those moments where you slide, you lose a little bit of health. And then you might go for a jump and right down into a hole. So back to where you were, work your way through, remembering that the hole was there. But there's always another danger. Now at this point, we have so much ammo. Ammo is not a concern, but I purposely grab as much as I can along the way so that I know I am good to go for the last level, because getting through the last level, you want to try to push through quickly if you can. Not that there's a timer, but there's so many enemies to deal with, but the faster you move through the last level, the better. When it gets to the very end, though, the boss fight, there's only one thing you need, and we're going to see it. Alright, final level, guys. You'll need all the ammo you can find. The raptors in the main hall have a bone to pick with you. We are at the visitor center. We've gone through multiple levels that were not from the film, but we are now back to familiar territory in the visitor center from Jurassic Park. And the level design here looks fantastic. This level also features my favorite soundtrack in the game. I love this level music. So a little bit of puzzles. You need the crate there to get up there. And there's going to be a lot of raptors and things. And we got the T-Rex back here. You miss so many times with these rockets. Eventually you just go back to the what's it called? The flash grenades when we need them. I love that door animation too, kicking the doors open. There we go. Getting some use out of those rockets. You can see all the construction stuff and the platforms and everything that we saw in the movies, which was really cool. A little blood splatter on the elevator door. That was a nice little detail. But again, it's just this last level here is about keep pushing through. You don't need to spend a ton of time on all these enemies, because you see they're relentless. They're going to keep attacking you like this, so as much as you can push through, the better. And ammo is really not a problem if you've been collecting along the way. We got some of the egg stations here. That's pretty cool. The Jurassic Park logo in the background on the wall. This functions very similar to Castlevania. Go back to the stairwell, kind of hold up and forward, and you go up the stairs. Love those round windows that you see right in the film. This level definitely has the most accuracy to the film than anything else in the rest of the game. And it's a pretty exciting level. Now, we all know the ending of Jurassic Park. What happens, the big event moment that occurs in that final scene of Jurassic Park. And that's what I was expecting to see when I got this game as a kid. What ended up being a huge surprise is that we don't get that at all. We're actually going to get what ended up being the scrapped version ending to the film. I also don't remember if the novel ends that way, because I think the end of the film differs from the book. Actually, I know for a fact it differs from the book. So what we're going to get shortly as the ending, the end fight, is not the moment with the T-Rex busting in and fighting the raptors and all of that. What happened in the book and what happens in this game is that there's only raptors to deal with, but we still have that area where the skeletons are all there, and that's what we want to utilize. Now, the key weapon are these explosive grenades, and this is one of the easiest boss battles in gaming history if you land in the right spot. All you need to do is hop down in between these two raptors. Do not touch the raptors and try to break apart these skeletons without the raptors coming after you. If they do come after you, it's one-hit death. But all you need to do is knock down the skeletons, take out the raptors, and you have now defeated Jurassic Park on the SEGA Genesis. You've made it! Rush to the helipad where a helicopter is waiting. And we get another cool little cutscene. It was always so nice seeing little cutscene moments animated on these systems, because that wasn't on everything, so it was very cool to see things like that. Jurassic Park, developed by Blue Sky Software on the SEGA Genesis. One of my all-time favorite titles on that system, and yet one of the most frustrating games I've ever played in the history of my gaming life. But I always find myself coming back to this one. And for those who have just gotten into a SEGA Genesis, maybe some people grew up with the Super Nintendo. I was the opposite. I grew up with the SEGA. And I'm getting into Super Nintendo things later in life. Some people may be doing that with the Genesis. This is a title I would recommend, especially if you're a fan of Jurassic Park. At the time, this game felt ahead of its time. I thought the animation style was incredible. I thought it looked so much better than other games that were out there at the time. And it was always so exciting to play a video game based off of the movie you just went to see in the theaters. Jurassic Park was such a huge blockbuster, and in 1993, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing something Jurassic Park related. It was huge. That movie was gigantic, dinosaur size, if you will. And to have a game come out where you could play as those characters was super fun. And that's going to do it for Way Back Wednesday this week, and we took on Jurassic Park on the SEGA Genesis. I hope you enjoyed this full playthrough of the Alan Grant storyline for Jurassic Park, but there is a second storyline to play where you actually take control of a velociraptor. It has its own storyline, and if you've never played it, I highly recommend it. And hey, let me know down in the comments. Would you like to see a full playthrough of the Velociraptor mode in Jurassic Park for SEGA Genesis? Guys, until next time, keep retro gaming alive, because one day, your games will be retro too. I'll see you guys on the next one.